Our first speaker today is Manisha Roy. She will share with us a chilling and unexpected event that occurred at her university campus when she was a graduate student in the 60s. What kind of impact did that have on her? Let's find out with her piece, Burned into Memory.
It was 1969. I came back to the University of California after 5 years in India doing fieldwork to finish my doctoral work in anthropology. Before that, I was in the Midwestern campus of Chicago for a while and University of Rochester, New York. So coming to California, partly I chose the campus to have a change of scene, and also I was tired of the winters in Midwest. And immediately the campus seemed like a welcoming change with the beautiful setting and the bracing climate year-round. It looked more like a resort town than actually a campus. And the students even behaved like they were in a perpetual spring break, was the way. And then there was this weekend parties on the beaches. And the beaches were dotted with VW Beetles, with surfboards on top, and the party went on through the night, reeking of marijuana and blasting music to which young men and women danced through the night. So I was a little surprised, but kind of ready to embrace a new culture altogether. Quite a difference from Northeast and Midwest. So our campus had this so-called hippie culture where you would hear the words like free sex, proud child, commune all the time among the students. But along with this hippie culture, there is another interesting contrasting movement going on side by side. On our campus, not so much yet, but in the other, all over the country. And that was the upheaval of a socio-political movement ushered by a revitalized civil rights movement following 2 assassinations of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert Kennedy in April and June of 1968. And of course, there was a tremendous amount of upheaval around the country in different campuses. Perhaps for the first time in this country, and also last time, all the campuses came together in one kind of sentiment, and it was mostly, even though it started with civil rights movement and also reaction to the assassinations, but also the main theme or sentiment was anti-Vietnam War. So we kept hearing things like demonstrations and rallies and riots, even bloody riots among different campuses. And of course, all hell broke loose on our campus when the mandatory drafting came, and everybody was shocked to hear that that's what they had to do. You can imagine among the bunch of students who are dancing and having fun all these years, suddenly this was a reality they had to face. Some of them fled to Canada, and some tried to hide somewhere. At the same time, some also got involved in the movement. And perhaps 1968 was the year which went in American history as the politically most explosive one, I think. So our campus even woke up eventually from the stupor of the beach culture and started demonstrating. And the whole atmosphere of rallying and demonstrating moved from campus to campus like wildfire by that time. So coming from India, or the Calcutta University where I studied before, in post-partition Indian atmosphere of the 50s, for me, demonstrations, rallies, even arrests were nothing new. So we were quite used to that. But I came to America to study, not to do politics. And with a scholarship, with a lot of hard work, I stayed clear of the campus politics. At least I tried to. So like a good student, I went to my classes, and In free time and the weekends, I learned vigorously how to twist, to DJ music, and had my good time. But then my roommates kept taunting me all the time, so why aren't you getting involved? It's so exciting, and so on and so forth. And I tried to stay away from it as long as I could. People like Gloria Steinem, Bob Dylan, Joan Baez came to our campuses often to rally, to sing, to lecture. And one day my roommate literally dragged me to a lecture by Steinem. And because I was more impressed by the reaction of the mob-like reaction of the students and the audience, about several thousand people in the quadrangle of the campus, than her fiery language to inspire young women to join a new brand of liberation movement or sisterhood. So amidst all this stuff, one Sunday morning, after partying all Saturday night, I decided to go to the library because I just remembered I had to write a paper for next week and I hadn't even started. So quite early, just before the library was supposed to open, maybe 7 in the morning, I drove to the campus, and at the parking lot, I saw a couple of police cars parked. So I thought maybe some kind of small theft happened, and the police was there to investigate it. But as I approached on foot to the library, and this was a very interesting newly built library, a multi-storied structure, a hexagonal structure, designed by some famous, I can't remember the name now, famous architect. And so library looked kind of sleepy on a early Sunday morning, hardly anybody on campus. As I approached the library, I see a small cluster of people on one side of the front yard. 10 or 12 people, maybe students, and the 2 police officers were talking to them, asking some questions. So the first person I could see, I asked him what happened. And he told me the following. He said, last night, a student from history department came here and burned himself to ashes. There was a banner next to him which said, "This is my way to protest against Vietnam War." So I stopped short my track, and it was such a numbing news. First I couldn't believe it, but then I had a smell. I realized that I had a stench, some kind of strange stench that I could have it, but I could not quite put my finger to it. And then I noticed a thread of smoke coming from the center of this cluster of people, because there was some remnant of the protesters' clothes or something. So I stopped and I sat on the stone ledge in front of the library, and the good intention of working on my paper at that moment became completely irrelevant. So sitting there, still inhaling the remnant of this protester, whom I never knew, never heard of his name even, I was wondering if this act of tremendous courage to sacrifice one's life, to convey a message to the government, would have any impact at all. And I sat there thinking of other things as well, all the other sacrifices people made in the past and would make in the future. So that night, I sat to write my parents about this, but I couldn't find words to explain or to convey the impact the event had on me. The incongruity of such a shocking, at the same time noble ritual of self-immolation by somebody who perhaps have nothing to do with this tradition, a white student in history department of University of California, San Diego, and then who is trying to send a message to a government several thousand miles away about a war which was 10,000 miles away from him and from us made no sense at all. And yet, it made every sense in a way. So, I was thinking, what can we do? And here I felt ashamed sitting there about my own indifference until now about such important issues, because I tried to keep away from it. And yet I had no way I could do anything about it either. The fact that I had to sit there, inhale the remnant of students' remains in protest of a war, which was totally unknown to all of us, and we had no way of knowing the head or tail of what was going behind all this. Of course, there are reasons, and we heard enough press to hear this side of the story of this government. But there was something wrong, we all knew about that. And even those who protested and did not protest knew that this was not a just war. So this fact that I had to be there to watch this self-sacrifice to make a point. And in front of this wonderful architectural symbol, the library, the newly built library, the repository of all knowledge, set in a town, perhaps with unparalleled natural beauty, La Jolla. The whole thing by itself made no sense at all, but things happen that way in life. And because of that, I could never forget that stench that I experienced going to the library that morning. The death of this young man who wanted to make a point that did not last too long after a couple of days or a couple of weeks of news flash in the radios and television. Many days and nights since then, I kept up thinking about this particular event and other events. And as a lifelong student and teacher of human nature and culture, I still feel astounded by the number of unjust wars waged around the world even today, and also by the atrocious injustice that one group and one individual or several individuals commit against another. It is also still surprising and stunning that some individuals, despite all this, in every generation, seem to try to make a difference, albeit failing it often. Thank you.